Joining me now is Ruth Ben-Ghiat. She's a professor of history at the New York University. She's the author of the Lucid newsletter, which focuses on threats to democracy. She's also the author of the book Strong Men, From Mussolini to the Present. Professor Ben-Ghiat, good to see you this morning. Thanks for being with us. I will say, the reason this is such an important conversation this morning is because there are lots of people, possibly people watching us right now, who say, I don't listen to Donald Trump. I don't care what he says. I don't pay attention to him. He's off the rails. But you cannot not pay attention to a former president of the United States running for president of the United States who has now actually called for ignoring the Constitution of the United States. This is kind of how it ends.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, Donald Trump has multiple woes right now. He's subject to, multiple criminal and civil investigations. And part of the GOP is turning away from him, which means donors are turning away from him. And this sets up a key dynamic with a strongman personality. The more they feel threatened and humiliated, the more they go for the extremes. And this is his attempt to just, say that he's willing to burn it all down. Because, we've been covering his dinner with Nick Fuentes. And Fuentes is not just a Holocaust denier. He also calls for dictatorship. And, Trump's helper, Michael Flynn, this is another reason we need to pay attention. You remember that after the loss of the election in November 2020, Flynn called for the Constitution to be suspended and martial law to be declared so the election could be, quote, rerun. And Flynn is still out there, having his Reawaken America indoctrination tour. So these people are not necessarily just fringe anymore. They are important people with large followings, and that's a huge problem.
Is there, and you cite really good examples of Nick Fuentes calling for a dictatorship, of Michael Flynn calling for the things he called for. But is there a line that gets crossed when Donald Trump actually posts that rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, should be terminated, and he should be instated as the winner of the election? Is that a line when you were sworn to protect the Constitution, and now you call for the Constitution to be terminated? And I don't mean legally, but in your studies of dictators, where is the line? Where do you go from being sort of off the rails into really dangerous because you've actually said the quiet part out loud?
Yeah, well, as you in your setup, you said the Constitution in his mind, it allows him to do anything he wants. This is somebody who has an autocratic personality. The irony is that a lot of actual dictators, including Mussolini and Hitler, did not suspend or terminate the Constitution. They either kept it in place in theory, or they found a workaround, like Hitler passed the Enabling Act so he could pass laws without parliamentary approval. And, Pinochet redid the Constitution in 1980, and Chileans are still trying to get to revise it. But this is Donald Trump signaling that he will, in theory, stop at nothing to get back into power, and that he will respect no laws other than his own power. So he's very frustrated right now, but this is why he's very dangerous, because he will. He never really cared about the GOP. It was a kind of mutual using situation. So he'd be very happy to destroy everything that he feels has wronged him, and he has the power to incite violence again. And this is a red flag.
To what degree does what we now know as gaslighting work? Because Donald Trump, as we said that the Constitution says he can do whatever he wants. He used the same defense with Mar-a-Lago, where he said he can declassify things because he thinks so. He can take any documents he wants. Maybe he believes this. Maybe he just knows it's effective. But it does seem to resonate with his base. He says it enough times, and they believe it to be true, despite the fact that there's actually a Constitution, there's actually courts, there's actually a body of law that says that's just not empirically true. A president is not free to do whatever they want, and no one in this country is free to dismantle the Constitution, which is why we saw some people charged and convicted of seditious conspiracy this week, because you can't actually do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ali, because the not so secret appeal of authoritarianism is somebody who has absolute power and can get away with anything. And when Donald Trump, like all strongmen, has a proprietary notion of power. That's why he can take documents. It's very typical that they found he was storing documents, highly classified documents in Mar-a-Lago, along with family photos and golf balls. They're all his. This mania of everything being his, and he can do anything he wants. He's omnipotent. That's what personality cults are for. They're for gaslighting, but they're for depicting the leader as a man more powerful than any other man. And that's very appealing to many people. And it goes with this idea that I can fix it and I will save you. And so these have been mechanisms, psychological and political mechanisms that have worked for 100 years. And we can predict that he will be using that more and more now as his troubles grow.
Ruth, good to see you again. Thank you for your analysis on this, as always. Ruth Ben-Ghiat is a professor of history at NYU, the author of the book Strong Men, From Mussolini to the Present, and the author of the Lucid newsletter.